I did.
Every morning, bro. Yeah.
All right, today is July 1st, 2021. We are here today for PBA negotiations. So a sign-up sheet is being sent around right now, and we're going to go around and just say our name for the record. So I am Jana Still. I am with County HR.
Thank you, Cosmo Kapoor. Kristen Hill, County Attorney's Office.
Crystal Zadura, HR County.
Lonnie Wilson, Cameron County Road Crew Board Annex.
Alan Miller, Board of PBA.
James Newton, PBA President on Wood Board.
Floyd Deadpool, Escambia County Corrections.
Caitlin Holford, Escambia County Corrections.
Jason Santos, Work Annex.
Charles Snow, Work Annex. Scott Nash, Escambia County Jail.
Rich Baldry.
All right, so I think we made some great progress in the past several meetings, so we're really excited about that. I will say we have an updated wage offer for you all. We took your counter proposal back to the board in executive session and discussed with them, and they gave us some direction to move forward. So we kind of came up with a compromise for the proposal. I think it's a good proposal, and I think the department agrees. It's fair and equitable. And then, so we have updated Article 22 and Appendix, is it B or A or something? I think it was Appendix C for assignment pay. So the discussions regarding the RCO and MCO and the concerns around that, we heard y'all and took that into consideration. So what we did is we pulled the RCO and MCO out of the assignment pay and actually inserted it into the promotion procedures article to treat it like we had discussed. So the 10% for the RCO and the 15%. So I'll get the updated articles passed around to you all so we can go through and review those. And then if y'all have anything on the remaining open articles, I know we don't have a lot left.
That's just a simple
Oh, yeah.
type of qualification.
Thank you. We don't have a lot left necessarily, so if y'all had anything, so we can kind of go ahead and get everything hammered out. This isn't gonna go in the contract, that's
Okay.
just, so I'm giving you, the RCO has, criteria behind it, so it'll be fair and consistent in how people are, relegated to that position. And so I'm gonna give you the article, and then what I give you is just an example of the checkoff sheet. It's not intended to go in the contract, it's just intended so y'all know what, criteria it is. Struggling over here. Struggling. Thank you. Page out. You want me to check out sheet? Did you? What? That's what you just gave me. When you handed me these, oh, I don't know which ones. This was in there.
Oh, thank you.
All right, talk about it.
On Article 13,
Yes,
just
sir.
kind of going in order.
on F, where we had agreed that if somebody died in the line of duty, we're gonna give them 100%.
Mhm.
And it says 100% of all unused sick leave, comma, up to a maximum of 1,040. If they had 2,000 hours, our intent was that the family would get 2,000 hours if they died in the line of duty, not up to 1,040.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, last time. So, you know, we agreed to paying out the full instead of the 50%, but you all had asked for there not to be a cap at all.
Right, only in the
In the line of duty.
In the line of duty, and it kind of is, kind of stings a little bit today, because Santa Rosa CI, I don't know if y'all know, lost an officer yesterday to COVID. And, so, I mean, while he doesn't work for us, it does show that, you know, the possibilities are out there. This was a fairly young guy.
It doesn't make
I don't know.
I mean, it might affect maybe one person.
Correct, I was gonna say, I don't know that it's something that would occur very often. I mean, at least I would hope and pray that it wouldn't occur very often.
This is a legislative question for the PBA. Do you know if the PBA is taking anything to Tallahassee to add COVID to the presumptive law?
It is.
Because obviously, they're not gonna pay out on that 100%.
No, they are. Right now, COVID is considered in the line of duty injury, workman's comp is paying
Yeah.
off.
Okay.
Yeah. that's
Santa
true.
Rosa,
You're missing my question.
Yeah.
Do you know if any of the bargaining unions are taking it? It's just a general question. Are they, any of them taking it to Tallahassee to add it to the presumptive law? And not, just a question.
that I don't know, but I know that the state is paying off, because that opens, you know, even one of our officers, if they passed away, is in line for either the 75,000 or, because there's two 75,000s. One is for what I call the slip and fall or the COVID issue, and then you have the 75,000 that's out there for an egregious event.
I just didn't know if there was any conversation through your bargaining unions or FOP or anybody about taking it forward. To see if they can get it.
I'll ask.
It'd be a decent bill to see how it gets argued and added.
Just to make sure. But yeah, that's the only concern I have on there, because it says 100%, but then we're capping it at 1,040.
Yeah, and I think actually we were amenable to that, and that's, there's a question for Kristen. I don't think there's, I mean, it references the statute, so the statutory limitation, but I don't think there is one on the sick leave.
Well, just the beneficiary statutes.
Correct.
Where they have to be a spouse, a significant other couldn't
Correct.
get it. It's got to be a family member.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think we're really close on 18.
Yeah. 7,040. For them, if they die, then.
So we're good with everything else in Article 13.
Yeah, Lisa. I do have one question. On 1306, says an officer directly involved in a work-related incident resulting in a death or serious injury of another party shall be granted 1 day of stress leave with pay.
I'm sorry, what part of the article?
1306. Should there, I know that in the line of duty shootings, which we've had one at the sheriff's office, or at the jail, where an inmate was actually hit and shot several years back. That officer was out until he was cleared. Are we gonna work on a case-by-case basis? And that would be the way that we need to.
It's easier.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
there are
fine.
multiple factors that we have to.
Yeah. That just, when I saw that was,
Yeah.
Okay.
and that brings us to 18. If I'm correct, the only thing on 18 was the difference between the 2 and the 3 hours. We're all in agreement, I think, that if you're called back within the hour, that's continuous time. Or if you're held over, that's continuous time, it doesn't qualify for callback time.
Is there anything else in 18? That was it. I think that, I mean, I know we discussed that before.
A lot of that's gonna depend on 21.
So if y'all had a chance to review 22 and the changes suggested therein.
Signposts.
What's that? Oh, sorry, let's look for
22. RCO, MTO.
You need one?
Yeah, I just. I want to talk again about the 120 hours for the career path.
Okay, which part, sorry?
That's gonna be in 22 when we open it up.
While we were talking about the MCRs, you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're on that one.
Okay. What I'm trying to do is just, since with COVID, everybody's doing stuff online, all I want to do is make it so the 120 hours of the approved training can be all online. National Institute of Corrections, FDLE, are approved courses.
Mhm. Well, I think
And
we
it-
talked about this last time, and it doesn't preclude the online classes.
That's not the way it's been interpreted.
Okay.
It's been interpreted that you can only do 100 hours online,
Okay.
and then you have to go to Georgetown or something for that last 20 hours. All I want to do is make it so it's either or. You can do all of it one way, all of it the other way, or somewhere in between, but just to make it, with our current state, make it easier for the officer to get their training in and have those hours counted.
The only question I still don't have clear from my perspective is, because it has to be validated by FDLE, because that funding comes from the state via that way. So I don't think we have I don't have the personal knowledge of whether or not that is acceptable as a means. I'll have to do some clarification, see what is allowable, because I just don't know the answer.
He's not talking about the FTLE money,
salary incentive.
he's talking about the career path.
The
Oh,
progression,
funds.
yeah.
Yeah, because I get what you're saying, the
Yes.
money that comes from FTLE, you have to go by their criteria. But for the 120 hours for the first class senior and master, but it still would have to come from, you know, a
Approved
a
source.
valid,
Like National Institute of Corrections, you know, it was in the appendix of what the approved courses were.
I just,
They gotta do 100 hours.
yeah, it's 100,
Or
up to, yeah, just requiring 20 hours of it being in classroom environment. Well, I wasn't here when this contract was written, I just asked what was the spirit of the contract, why wasn't it granted the full Monty then? Anybody know?
because we didn't have COVID.
You got a 5-year span between these career paths, you got 5 years, we've had COVID for a year and a half.
Okay.
This is to make a better officer. It is, the training needs to be taken intensely for that. It's not just to get online and just roll through these classes real quick and get the number, in my opinion.
The problem with a lot of the not calling anybody a cheater. However, comma, we all know that right now you probably go online and put in FEMA 1000 and find all the answers for that test available online. And you can go click through it in 5 minutes. The intent is 100 hours, not 100 credit hours. The possibility for a lot of these trainings that we can go to right now, I literally guarantee if you spend a little bit of time on tonight and go to any one of these training things that you're talking about, and I see, you can go to corrections 1 and get them, you get a lot of different, you can go to the law enforcement side of the house. If you click around enough, you'll find the answers to those exams. So credibility and the intent of it is to get training, not increase your salary. And I think we lose a little bit of that integrity sometimes by not putting, and I'm assuming that step was there to at least have somebody sitting in a classroom for 20 hours versus getting it all online. And from that perspective, I understand why it wasn't all online.
Right, but in the current climate,
It ain't gonna last forever.
well, no, it's not gonna last forever, but as right now, I mean.
Right now,
Are
you
you asking
UWF
for
is
something
doing
to
it
be put in
online.
there? Are you asking for something to be put in there if
Right now, you can go
another
to class
pandemic
tonight.
happens, you are
No,
able
I
to
just
get
wanna put
such
it
and such?
and make it so it's
George Stone is
just
up
they're
and
getting the
running.
hours in, you know, I mean, they're actually getting the training, I mean, you know, we're assuming the officer's paying attention to George Stone. I mean, most of those classes are no-fail classes. You know, I mean, yeah, sure, they can sit there, okay, I mean, doing this, not paying attention. So, I mean, you know, all I wanted to do is just make it a little more convenient, easier.
I
for
think,
the officers.
I think
That's all.
100 of the 120 hours is more than acceptable. I don't see any reason to change it, to be honest with you. I think 100 of the 120 hours is more than acceptable from my perspective, with the expectation that an officer will do 20 hours seated. College classes are up. George Stone's back rolling again. It's easily obtainable. And I understand people's concern with COVID, it's real, I understand. But here we sit in the classroom right now. Quasi-classroom.
You can get a college degree online at the
You
same
sure can.
time.
And you get plenty of credit for it in here. But a lot of our training intended is to be hands-on,
I agree.
not just academic.
We can discuss a little further in caucus, but, you know. Do y'all have any feedback on the MCO, RCO?
I like the verbiage on there. I don't know, I mean, you're more on the
No, that's
RCO
fine.
side. I'm talking, Lonnie's more on the RCO side, but I think.
Yeah,
that's-
well, I mean, just to give, so you just don't have it before the position was, you know, done away with, this was what required.
Because on our end, we have to keep up with certain.
Exactly, and so,
stuff.
I think.
And just so it's clear out, like on the MCO part,
Yeah.
if a medical officer gets promoted to sergeant, he is to maintain this certification, or he'll lose the 15%.
Oh, absolutely.
It just gives us more medical
agreed.
You know, as we kick this concept around a little bit more, I'll just go ahead and say, I think it's a huge advantage for the staff at the main and phase one and phase two. Recognizing that for many, many years, medical has stressed and struggled to keep nurses on staff as well. A 15% salary increase to a correctional officer is a significant amount of money for them to go get that training, as you very well know. And then we could utilize them in the jail to assist in doing some of the things that you guys do right now out there at the work annex inside the jail, and take some of that load away from some of the nurses as well.
Okay, so your intention is to expand this
To the whole department.
to the whole department?
Yeah. We will establish some positions that, you know, a certain amount, 1 or 2 per shift, if you will, that way it's balanced, and grow this a little bit, because I think it's a huge advantage for the department.
Now, will they have to pay for their own school?
Yes, that's their commitment, and they're maintaining their certification.
And I'm not exactly having, I ain't gonna tell you how long it was when I went through the school, but it was like 81. And it was like a Monday, Wednesday class and a Tuesday, Thursday class. So if they're gonna be going through that kind of school, it's gonna require a commitment.
We can work on that.
Yeah, to,
Because it is very, it does fluctuate, like,
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that they work big time.
Sure.
We'll talk about it in college.
Yeah,
but,
it's-
but as long as there's, you know, because,
I think it is definitely something.
and by the way, you can get your EMT online too.
They also got a program in Georgetown,
Yeah,
just started.
well, I don't know if they even teach EMT at PJC anymore.
I think that's
So
why.
we're gonna clarify, go ahead and add that to it, the EMT license that we got at Georgetown or PJC.
Yeah, well, no, it's gotta be,
An
you
accredited,
gotta be certified to
teacher,
either
you just can't go to
by
John
Florida or
Bob's
national.
school.
And I think actually Florida's going to the national exam, haven't they? So,
Yeah, you gotta maintain a license and everything,
yeah,
you
it's
have to.
it's pretty intense school.
We'll put the policy together. If this gets ratified in, then we'll develop a policy that outlines all the.
I like to help out with that.
Sure.
No, I just wanted, when you started, I was like,
Yeah, we're just kicking the concept around a little bit and realize that this can definitely help us get the assistance to the inmates when they need it. I mean, everything from the front door when they come in to, you know, all the way through the process, when the EMT is available, it's to our advantage.
Any other feedback on 22?
the monster in the room.
There's a monster in the room?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard it's in the bed.
It's called Article 21.
I don't think it's a monster. Okay, so I'll have Crystal go around, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you the wage proposal separate from Article 21, and then once we have an agreement, we will integrate it into it. So we'll give you a second to mull it over, and then, of course, I know you all have questions, and so we would like, to be able to explain it further.
Now, when you say B1, is that placing them in the step closest where they're at?
Yes, sir. So the intention for the existing is to place them to the closest step.
I guess I read that.
for the classification, and they'll go to the step closest to their existing wage, and after that, the percentage increase will be applied.
Yeah, we're gonna need to caucus on this one.
Yeah, and I wanted to pull we're trying to get volume specific, the scale up on the big screen to show y'all like how it moves, you can see. We don't have the spreadsheet for the individual folks just yet, the definitive cost, because we're confirming the anniversary date so we can make sure we're representing the cost accurately and what it will actually be for each person.
You ain't leaving out the overhead, darling.
Oh,
The what?
The overhead,
through the old heads.
the ones that we had discussed, that
Oh, they're
if
maximum.
if they're at the maximum. Yeah.
That's what it says.
So,
Just checking.
yeah, no, yes and no. I mean, how it's written, they will go, so even if they're off the scale, but the intention of a COLA is to shift the scale. So if they're, if they're off the scale, the COLA should keep them in this, it's how you apply it, so. And so to be clear, the 2% for everybody across the board will be added as a COLA, so it shifts the scale. For the individual years of service, that will be treated like a COLA. It will inure to the individual person, so they'll move to a different step within the pay grade.
That's the category. So that put, say you're
And I don't know if it's easier for you to, until we do the cost assessment on every individual employee, because that takes, obviously it's taking time just to figure out some people's actual dates of certification, because multiple tenures, if you will.
What do you make?
They can probably do a couple samplings for you in the room.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Of
gonna
your
put
own,
the
that way
scale
you'll
in.
see where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be apples to apples for everybody.
Yeah, I
It
see.
depends on where you're at. Again, you're messing with percentages. A dime versus a dollar,
Yeah.
if it's 1%, depends on where you're at in that number. You know what I mean?
From this, so it's like 1, 2.
But that's the good and bad of forcing everyone to scale. It's gonna be variable because it's the first time we're putting people on the scale, but the intention of the scale and how it's built in the structure is to keep consistency to where we don't end up in this like.
I do have questions for those who are receiving stipend pay.
Mhm.
Are they gonna have that before this? Is that 10% or 15% before this goes into effect?
It's just a raise. Yeah. How's that being calculated?
I mean,
It should be to the base, right?
you have to sign the contract in order to change the pay, so.
Yeah.
That would be an HR question.
Okay.
Is it being applied to the base?
Not right now, it's not, but he's in the Oxio incident, which is your social benefit is under that on base.
Yeah, so the answer to that is, it depends on whether or not it was assigned to the base rate or inured to the base rate, and how we have it proposed in the contract for MCO and RCO, for example, it would include it.
We would have to have a
You
basic.
adjust your base and apply it.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
No, that's a great
Because I'm
question.
sure I'm gonna get that question.
No, it's a really great question.
Like that is not. I'm seeing.
Well, when you see it,
That is weird. Well, that's not our 661. We just, yeah. Yeah, that might be helpful, but we just need
one, not one.
What do you think, Mr. Dillon? With Joe?
to.
You gonna get anything? Looks good, don't
Janet, you wanna kill that mic for a minute?
Yeah, I was about to say, if
While
you're
we're
looking
trying,
for
everybody got
something.
sidebars going? IT's in the room.
Okay, so we're back on record and we have the scale pulled up. So I'm gonna show y'all an example. So you're a corrections officer now. You will go to the pay grade B1, that is this pay grade right here. That's the Yeah, sorry, I was pulling up the hourly. Alright, so here's the intention. All corrections officers, their new base rate would be right here, 1706. But we're gonna apply a 2% COLA that shifts the entire scale for you all. So now the new base rate for all corrections officers is 1741. So anyone below that, like you can't be lower than 1741 if you're a corrections officer, no matter how many years of service you have. Then based off of your years of service, you might get additional. So let's throw a number out here. Say that you're currently, as a corrections officer, you've been a corrections officer for 3 years, and your current rate of pay right now is $18.31. You will now be forced to scale here at $18.47. Then, because you've got 3 years of experience, you get to move an additional step. Your new pay rate is now $18.84. So let's take a similar example, same scenario, 3 years corrections officer, but your current pay rate is $19.23. So 1922 is technically the closest step to 1923, but we will not let anyone decrease by even a cent. So now you will go to 1960 on the scale, and because you've got 3 years of experience, you get to move an additional step, which will put you at 1999. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that 3 years experience at where you're currently working, or 3 years experience anywhere else?
It's 3 years experience in your current class as correctional officer with a scheme. That's the intention.
Well, not necessarily current class, but as a corrections officer.
Yes, sorry, correctional officer with a scheme.
Because we have,
With just Escambia County, not the state, or?
no, state doesn't count.
Yes, sir. Yeah. What are you thinking? Is that Pete?
That's what he's asking. Yeah, I get it, I get it.
Remember, it's for the body.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I said,
No, so the 2% is,
How many years have you got in it?
8 years. You go to step in, and then it resets from that. OPQ essentially.
What are you making right now? What are you at now? Yeah.
yeah, no, you're right.
Sergeant's asking me.
So, we're gonna go to.
Wait, actually, yeah, no, it is, Crystal, it was, no, because no, for lieutenants and sergeants, they get the 2%, but everybody else, they get forced to scale. And then they get additional steps, they don't get necessarily the 2% COLA per se. The COLA is implied, a COLA is gonna be applied to the entire range, that's why we started the rate. I know, it's so confusing. So what I'm saying is that, the 2% COLA for like corrections officers is
Three steps.
implicated in the 1741, shifting the scale, not change, step B, step B will not be the same. So everybody will immediately go to
Al,
grade.
Al.
And they're at, if you're above 1741, wherever you land on the scale, you get an additional step or two. That's exactly what they'll take. Does that make sense? Yeah.
He needs that.
No, you're fine, no. It is confusing, I know. You're right.
I was gonna want anybody to few.
Yeah. We do not have a question.
Sergeants.
The lieutenant is
Oh,
yes, because, so the counter that you all gave us was only,
No, it needs to be, well, when we say corrections officer, our intent was, even though I didn't write it in there, was for everybody who works in the jail as a corrections officer, a correctional sergeant, correctional
Regardless
lieutenant,
of
they are
rank.
corrections officers.
right? So we were a little confused because the pay grade y'all utilized was what we had proposed for the correctional officer, and so the different ranks would have to have their applicable pay grade. So we didn't run the cost or the numbers to apply to the sergeant and lieutenant. The same, years of service increase, so based off of how it's currently proposed, the sergeants and lieutenants get the 2% COLA. The corrections officers, that's where the years of service is applicable.
Well, our counterback's gonna be that the sergeants and the lieutenants get
The same
the
setup.
same. It's not gonna be incrementally that much money, but it would cause that one contract to fail. Because you're potentially putting,
I understand that, but we didn't want to make the assumption, the interpretation of what you all gave us, so we didn't want to make the assumption, so. I know, but this is
Anytime you
negotiations.
make an assumption and you give us more money for a section,
It's probably a safe assumption.
that's a safe assumption. But
That might be your opinion, I don't know if the board would agree with that, but, yeah. So if that was the case, then it would just be the same way throughout.
yeah, exactly. So y'all need to go caucus on that one too?
We'll have to discuss that.
Well, that's gonna be the only way to it.
No, you gotta push the medium will fill to the rim, the small one.
So y'all cracking me up.
You would put that big one in it over.
So yesterday. So at this time, do you think we need to take a caucus? Because I know that we can discuss what we talked about with the 3 remaining articles, and then we'll talk about the wage proposal. So your verbal counters that basically
It
apply
applies to
what we have
all.
given to you all to the sergeants and lieutenants as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. We shall discuss. All right, come on, group, let's. Okay, so we have returned from caucus. And this is our PBA session. So during caucus, we discussed the changes to Articles 13 and 18. We were amenable to those, agreeable to what the union had requested in Articles 13 and 18. So we have the revised proposals that have actually been signed off by our interim county administrator, Wes, to TA. And so if you all want to TA 18 and 13, that puts us one step closer. We're gonna take some of the feedback regarding the Article 22, the promotional procedures, to have a little bit of further discussions on those and kind of come back with an offer and then tied to a wage offer. So we went and took what y'all's counter offer was for the wage proposal, kind of talked it out, and so we think we have something good and solid, but we do have to take it to the board for approval. We're gonna have to cost it out for them. So since it's a higher cost than what we had originally shown them, we're gonna need to just take it back to get their approval. We'll see if we can get that done, you know, as soon as possible. So we can just come back to the table because these, you know, after this, the only remaining articles are duration, which we can't complete until, and then promotions and salaries, promotional procedures and salaries.
Okay.
So the
There's
part
no
you're gonna
questions.
take would be what we asked about the sergeants and lieutenants.
Sure.
Yes, sir, yes.
But everything else,
Oh, it's on, where's the signature page?
And I'm costing it out now as we speak, so they can get it as quick as possible, so.
Now, will this be covered? I know they have a shades session. Like
Has to
next
be
week.
announced first, but
Yeah.
it's gotta be part of the announcement, what the topic is. I don't believe there's any way around that.
Just over 2 weeks.
I'm sorry.
I mean, there might be, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yep, see,
When
stressing me.
will this pay increase go into effect?
So it goes into effect upon the ratification of the agreement.
That's all we want.
And so just FYI on that, you know, it's already in the salaries article that, everyone, that all the bargaining members get any across the board adjustment, COLA, whatever the board, gives to the rest of the employees. So if the contract were ratified before, the board normally makes the decision for the rest of the county employees October 1st for the new fiscal year. If it was ratified before October 1st, it would go into effect for you all immediately. And then when the board made that decision for the rest of the employees, if they did change anything, you all receive it as well.
So the only thing you sent to the board was the sergeant lieutenant pay
Mhm.
scale that you're gonna try to configure,
Yeah.
they're gonna configure.
Yeah, we're
it,
gonna
they
cost
gotta-
it out so we can show them an updated cost. of
But
what-
everything else besides that, it's kinda,
That's what we've been.
okay, that's what.
Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah,
What we're anticipating, just that way you'll know, is
As
that
a-
way, time and grade, if you will, time and class, group them, you know, 1 to 5, 1 to 4, whatever, you've been a sergeant between 1 and 4
Okay.
years, this is your
So-
move. That's it.
kind of mimic what we do with
Okay.
corrections.
Now, point of clarification on what we talked about before we went on the record as far as getting the calculations
Yeah,
correct.
so we'll talk about that.
Because time is running short, I've got to pick my son up and take him to the hospital here
Yeah.
shortly. But,
Oh,
he's just having some minor surgery, but I got to get there shortly. But, basically, the language just needs to say that if you are a first class, you receive
So we're-
15%. If you are a senior, you receive 10%. If you are a master, you receive 5% from the pay that you are at currently.
Yeah, so we're gonna look at it and make sure that's the reason why we held the promotion article, is because we're taking that feedback, so we're gonna clean up the language so it is more clear and less cumbersome, and we don't run into that issue. And like I said, we've already gone back and looked at, we went back to 2018 to look at those who have been promoted since then, and so we will look at the difference and correct anything that needs to be corrected. So, I know, right? Anything else? out, so we have to schedule the shade meeting with the board. So, we'll reach out to you all to schedule a session, right after.
Yeah, we need to do it ASAP.
Correct. So
Even
I'll
if
see
they
how
have-
fast we can
even
get
if
it
they
on
have to
board.
do a special board meeting for it.
We'll see what we can do.
I'll
I
work
mean-
all night, Alan, to get this costed out.
Mhm.